Today I'll be working on my '01 Silverado, fixing an ABS fault. Now I have changed the ABS sensor, but I'm still getting the fault. I have since found that I have a bad wheel bearing, and the play in the wheel bearing is what I believe to be causing the fault. I will be opening a new bearing from Amazon, installing that on the truck today. As stated in the introduction, I had an ABS fault, and after replacing with a brand new ABS sensor, the fault was still happening. When I was coming up to a slow stop on dry pavement, the ABS would kick in. I had this problem once before, so I knew I needed to change the wheel bearing. In this specific case, the wheel bearing was, so I ordered a new wheel bearing off Amazon. I will post a link in the description for a heavy duty wheel bearing. I put a regular duty or light duty wheel bearing in, a cheaper one, about a year and a half ago. That didn't last long, obviously, because this is what brought the problem on. So I opted for the heavy duty version. There will be a link in the description for the wheel bearing that I bought off Amazon. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. So if you follow the link below, it'll help pay for the videos that I make, and I'll be able to put more videos up. So with the GM specific software on my scanner, I was getting a front left wheel under speed reading. So it was reading that wheel was going slower than the rest, therefore trying to engage the ABS. Because of the heat created by the wheel bearing housing was rusted and spindled pretty bad. So I had to heat the spindle in order to remove it from the truck. As you'll see here, when I heat the spindle, I'm heating the thinnest part that I can see and have access to, and this will help spread the spindle to make room for the housing to come off. You'll see here when the bearing actually comes off, the rust is a very fine rust. It is a different color than the rest. That is from the heat created from the bearing. And you'll see when the bearing comes off as well that the dust seal had come apart and water was getting in the bearing, ingressing into the bearing and creating more damage. You'll see here I'm putting anti-seize on the axle shaft. I've already put anti-seize on the new hardware that came with the bearing that bolts the spindle on. Also, new hardware came to bolt the caliper on. You'll see here that I put the bearing on with the impact wrench. That's just to snug it up to hold it together. I will use a torque wrench on it to set the proper preload on the bearing. You always want to use the proper torque specifications to get the bearing to last longer. As you'll see in a minute here, I'll hold up the bolt for the caliper brackets, which also came with the bearing. They have thread locker on them. This is something you do not want to put anti-seize on. You want this to stay tight and not back out. I hope this video helps you and helps diagnose if you have any nagging ABS faults like I did, that it's not always the specific sensor, but anything near the sensor can also cause the fault in the ABS.